Okay, I have to share with you, this is so magical. So, as I was working on the speakers for April, an email comes in. Hi, my name is Angela Frank and I'm a death doula. I would love to do a presentation for your group, right? So we connected with each other and I'm giving her the Sundays that are available. And she goes, I like the 20th. So I'm going, perfect. So I open my calendar and I'm going, that's Easter. That's so appropriate. and she goes, oh yes, it is. So
Awesome.
so everything just works out. I love how that we're always taken care of. So I'm going to just read her short little bio and then she'll tell us why it's so perfect here on Easter. So Angela Frank, her title of her talk today is In Light of Death. And in this talk, Angela will share a brief history of dying in the Western society, forgotten rituals and ceremonies to honor our past loved ones, and the importance of discussing death before the inevitable happens. By shifting our current practices, we can empower those facing death to find acceptance and their loved ones to do the same as they navigate grief. And Angela is the owner of Lilies of the Valley. She's a death doula, and she is a facilitator of women's circles. And so could we please give Angela Frank a big
Thank you, everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be speaking. We've just had a really wonderful meditation, but I would like to invite everyone to close their eyes again.
Can you speak up?
Yes. Yeah, I'll try to talk louder. Please holler at me if you can't hear me in the back. So we just did a really beautiful meditation. So I'd like to invite you all to close your eyes once more. And taking this moment to focus on your breath. Think about the last time you thought about dying. Dying. With acknowledgement that one day, indeed, that you'll die. If you're not sure or haven't before, please take the time to do so now. What matters most to you in your life? Who do you love and deeply cherish? Have you talked to them about death and dying? Created plans for your end-of-life wishes so that they know how you want to be honored before and after passing? And if the answer is no, please ask yourself why. Death is universal. It cares nothing of age or genetics, religion or race. It's not something that happens to us at an unknown time. It's always present as a possibility. When you're ready, you're welcome to open your eyes. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'll do my best to talk loud. I'm here, wanted to be here today to talk about death, because it's not talked about and discussed nearly as much as it should. As a result, we see individuals reaching end-of-life experiences and end-of-life who experience death anxiety and fear of death. Less than half less than half of individuals have completed advanced directives in the United States. In a survey held by the California Healthcare Foundation, it found that 82% of people say that it's important to write down their end of wishes, while only 23% do. More so, nearly 80% said that they should talk to their doctor about end of life care, while only 7% do. This leaves loved ones without guidance to make decisions and on behalf of dying and face difficulties navigating end of life affairs, especially in a time of grief. It wasn't always like this though, and I want to touch on the brief history of how we've led, how we led to be here, and I think is essential to understand. So, going back to pre-Civil War in America, mourning and funerals were deeply personal. Death was familiar and a part of everyday life. Funerals took place in the home. With women and men coming from the community, assisting family to prepare for burial by washing the body, laying out the body, while the men dug their grave for their loved one. Someone would sit up with the body for 3 days to ensure that their death had occurred. And this was all, during this time, this is all a very intimate time where their close family members participated, ensuring a proper burial for their loved one. During the Civil War, however, this brought a new meaning to death in America. The war's casualties brought about a need for creating practices in the funeral industry. And by the end of the Civil War, those practices changed the way we mourn for our loved ones. The 1900s saw funeral practices and mourning customs start to shift. With the Civil War brought the advent of embalming. Because of the Civil War's death toll, was estimated between 620,000 to 750,000 soldiers, much of which died from infection and disease, and they were ways away. This was the first time in American history where many of these individuals were dying away from home, but families still wanted to, give their loved ones a proper burial. So embalming became a thing to preserve the bodies so they could be sent back home for families to bury their loved ones. And in and with this embalming, it really peaked after we saw the death of Abraham Lincoln, because he was also embalmed, and there was a viewing for him for 2 weeks. So it kind of really played a big role in a big way of marketing of like, oh, this is embalming. This became a very popular thing to do. So through the late 1800s, through the early 1900s, we saw professional undertakers continue to start this practice. Schools for morticians were now being formed, and then we saw the shift with funerals being moved out of the home, because these newly founded funeral parlors with embalming started them to away from home funerals. This is also where caskets also became a thing. So in this time we saw this shift of, making death of your loved one more intimate at home, to being sent to a funeral house to be embalmed and to be put in a casket and then to be buried. In addition to this, we saw shifts like these in medical advancements that really dramatically changed how we died in America. After World War II, in 1945, doctors began to have medications and technologies like ventilators that could starve out the dead. And instead of dying at home, people often ended up in these hospitals to prolong their life, which influenced doctors to begin to think of death as a medical failure. If a patient died, it wasn't because it was because they didn't do the right thing. And this kind of became this battle against death. Over the last century, we've seen this dramatic change from people dying at home, dying in the hospital, and because of this, we have just an immense disconnect that has heavily influenced the way we see death. We don't see it happen. We don't know what it looks like. We don't talk about it. There's minimal time to be with your loved one as like we used to. And as a result, fast forward to today, 50, 70 years later, we have accumulated just a lot of myths and misconceptions about death, and it has really grown to something we refrain from talking about completely. So this is kind of where I come in. So I recently started my business as a death doula, which means death doulas we are here to educate and advocate for individuals and their families navigating death and dying. What the support looks like will vary based on the client's needs, but I can assist with things like consulting, completing your advanced care directive, which is a document that outlines your preferences for medical treatment in the case, in the event that you aren't able to communicate those. I can assist with 5 wishes, which is another kind of advanced directive that is a little bit more personal in regards to touching on your spiritual, emotional, and personal care wishes near end of life. Death doulas can also assist with things like funeral and burial arrangements and provide information on home funerals. And that's something that we can still do today. It's just not a very common, because there's a lot of misconceptions as if once your loved one passes, this body is now no longer and suddenly just diseased or infectious, which is a common misconception. You can keep your loved one at home and preserve them so you can have a home funeral for them. So your loved ones can take the time to be with them and find closure for an extended period of time before you move forward with burial or cremation or however you wish to, however the individual would like to be buried. We can also provide guidance on wrapping up affairs. There's a lot of things that people don't think about, like needing multiple death certificates, thinking about all of the accounts that you have, passwords, all of your, all of your accounts, your banking, your Netflix account, things like this that need to be closed at some point, and if these passwords aren't listed, it's there's a lot of difficulty in trying to navigate handling these things if they're not written down and you've sent them past. So someone as a death doula is here to kind of have those things in place so your loved ones don't have to have this immense amount of stress and frustration while they're navigating grief. We're also here to support you emotionally, spiritually. We can assist with creating a legacy plan or a legacy project. We can help you complete unfinished business. So writing something such as writing letters to your loved ones, things that you haven't told, said things to your loved ones that you've been wanting to say. We can also help with ritual and ceremonial planning, so you feel more fulfilled as an individual reaching end of life, and your loved ones can also feel that kind of sense of closure in rituals, which I'm sure all of you know provides an immense amount of benefits. To my acknowledgement, there's not very many death doulas in our area. It's on the upside. It's since COVID, there's been a lot more talk about death and dying, and there has been an increase in death doulas. Right now, to my knowledge, we only have a few in our area. There is maybe like 4 of us, 5 in our area. But you can find them all on Alaska End of Life Alliance.org. They'll be listed in the directory. Alongside this, working in this field, I also work for Hospice of Anchorage.
Yay.
Yeah, really excited to start. So Hospice of Anchorage is the oldest and first hospice to serve in the Anchorage community. We're established in 1980, but we're also quite different from traditional medical hospice. Hospice of Anchorage is a nonprofit volunteer organization, which allows us to provide services to the community in many ways a medical hospice doesn't. We can essentially, with medical hospices, they require 6 months or less a diagnosis of 6 months or less to live. Being a nonprofit volunteer hospice, we can help you further out than that. We can respond to any requests for assistance, but and best help when we are asked to provide guidance and support earlier with a progressive or life-limiting illness. So basically, you just need to have a diagnosis of being terminally ill, and we can provide support. And we have certain clients that who've been with us for years. There's one. One of my coworkers, she mentioned that there's in not this particular hospice, but there's a different hospice that she worked for. She said that she worked with an individual who was diagnosed with cancer, given 6 months left to live, and he's been around for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, still kicking. We, in addition to this, so we can really provide just a lot of more resources for you for a longer period of time. Care is provided by a team of professionals and trained volunteers, which includes emotional, spiritual support, information, education, in-home practical assistance, and companioning, assessment, coordination of community resources. So we don't just focus on your medical need to alleviate pain or and whatnot. We do a lot more than that. I can help you in a variety of ways. Our staff provides consultation, education, and support visiting during regular hours. We're open Monday through Thursday from 11 to 4. And we also provide personal care assistance, and we can also provide what's called a companion care, a companion. So with all the volunteers, we have an individual who can just come and be with you and do things like read or do like housekeeping, or just have that kind of social emotional support by having someone with you. So in addition to also, this is all free. There's no fee involved with our hospice, as opposed compared to medical hospices that charge normally. And you don't need to have an order from a healthcare provider as a referral to be eligible for receiving services. So in addition to helping who are those seeking end-of-life services, we also have a huge resource center that's available to not only our clients, but also to the community. We also without any fee. If you go into our office, there are tons of books that are available on death and dying, on dementia, pet loss, grief, that is available to you. We have forms available such as advance a directive and power of attorney that you can also have, and we have just tons of brochures of information for anything that you kind of might need. all available to you free of charge. We also have a huge resource of medical equipment that's available. So we have things like wheelchairs and canes and walkers. We have other medical supplies like wipes and diapers. So really expensive equipment that is available to the community. When you just need to come in and ask for it. We do ask that you bring it back, but we don't have the expectation to that you'll need to. And so please, I really encourage you to come and come stop by. I'll be the front desk, so I'll say hi. And really, if you or anyone you know is, navigating death and dying with their loved ones, with you personally, or someone trying to navigate grief, please come by, because we have resources available to you and for our community. And I really just want to do my best to advocate for that, because I think they can be really beneficial for a lot of individuals. And I believe I probably talked for a lot less than an hour, but I would like to, I'd like to end with saying that I found myself in this field after facing a near-death experience that filled me with a lot of fear. There was a point where I was very scared for my life, and in that moment it was out of my control. And this really left me thinking a lot about death, and I found myself finding out that a lot of us nearing end of death are fearful and have anxiety about end of life. And this is not because we're in a society that is filled with death denial, because we don't talk about it enough. So I'm here doing this work because I want to empower our community to have conversations about death and dying. Because the more we talk about it, the more it becomes normalized. And if people and their loved ones are prepared, we can decrease this amount of fear and anxiety that comes with end of life for many. And knowing that we may die can also allow our loved ones knowing what our wishes are.
We may die.
That you will die. We may die well and alone. Yeah. If we have these plans in place, we can, really relieve our loved ones knowing what our wishes are and what you want best for them before it becomes too late and we have to make those decisions when you can't communicate them to your loved ones. And which will also relieve just an immense amount of stress on them when they do need to make difficult decisions. And so that made and having these plans in place can also allow your loved ones who live on past you, having sense of feelings of closure, without needing to navigate the nuances of funeral planning and the legalities of all the things that comes with after you pass, in a time where they're in grief. It's like the worst place in your life that you want to be trying to handle, what the password is to your Netflix to close it,
Or Facebook.
or Facebook.
Never.
Yeah,
There's
there's
so
just,
amazing how many people we get, that says, oh, they died 7 years ago and we're still happy birthday.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. We live in a society where we have so much technology and we have like so many more accounts and passwords and things that need to be closed and.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
We already have digital eternal life.
Yeah.
Angela,
Thank you very much.
a question.
Yeah.
The afterlife.
What is your thoughts about, like Life Alaska donor services, being able, at the end of your life, donating the parts of your body that might help someone else live longer, your corneas, have people be able to see. I've talked to another death doula who implied that if the body is at home and you want to keep it there for like 2 or 3 days, I get you need to keep it cool enough, but that it could get donated to like Life Alaska Donor Services after a few days. What's your thoughts about that?
I would need to look into that more. I feel like it. I am not sure how long things like things like organs. If you're looking to donate your body, I think that would need to be handled sooner than later. So if you wanted to keep your body, if you want to have a home funeral for your loved ones, you need to keep your body cool. But I'm not sure how long it would need to it takes to how well your organs would be preserved. I would initially think that they would need to be taken out and as soon as possible versus a few days later.
That's kind of what
and cooling,
I
so-
kind of think that too, but
Yeah.
I haven't done the research yet.
Yeah, definitely a good question to know though.
Yeah.
If you want to donate your body, yeah.
So that was really nice that you went through some of the history of the way we treated death and how we've franchised it, and there's so many laws and rules on how a person's remains go. A couple of things to add to hers are medical donations of the entire body is one for science. There are groups that receive bodies, however, they have to be shipped out of here unless Alaska's got something. The other thing is that's coming up on the horizon are two types of, besides embalming, there's two types of composting that are starting to come up. There's a chemical composting they've been doing with animals for pets, even up to horses. Some people are paying for that, but the one that's kind of interesting is the literal composting from mushrooms, mycelium. Are you familiar enough to speak of that?
Yeah. So I know there's work in progress. For the gal that owns Flameless Creation, she does water cremation for animals. I know she's in the process of working to get land so we can have composting, like organic
cemetery, I think they call it.
Yeah, natural burial to compost.
Rachel, right?
Rachel
Yes.
Bernhardt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know it's in the works. From the sounds of it, it's been a fairly slow process for her. Because there's a lot of I think she's kind of just playing the waiting game right now, as far as legalities go. But that's definitely hopeful. I'm really hoping to see that be something that is an option for Alaskans sooner than later.
What's the physical location of your office, the hospice?
Oh, hospice.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Hospice of Anchorage
Hospice of Anchorage
is
National Airport Road.
it's off of Northern Lights.
Yes.
And
You're
it
near that
like Lake Otis and
community Christian church, or
I think so. Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's right behind the
Right
church.
behind Windler Middle
I
School.
think it's like 2612 Northern Lights. It's
Like
easy
Lake Otis, Northern
to,
Lights.
it's easy to miss because it's kind of like it's right behind that church. But there is a sign that says Hospice of Anchorage, and if you turn in, just come. It looks like a house. So yeah.
Is that the volunteer one?
Yes. Yeah.
So what is your connection with hospice, the medical hospice, like in coordination if you have a client that you're helping, and then how do you coordinate things with hospice as far as like the nurses coming in and medications and all of those things?
Yeah, so we've kind of our hospice kind of plays like kind of like connection. So you can have services from Hospice of Anchorage, and you can also have services from a medical hospice. There's 3 currently in Anchorage, and so we can continue to, if you seek out medical hospice, we can still provide services for that for you as well.
And you guys coordinate that together, or is there a
Yeah, we do our
goes
best.
well, or?
Yeah.
So I just have 2 things to throw in. Keep your advance directive somewhere where people can see it when they're walking in the door.
Okay.
My sister had hers on the refrigerator covered up with magnets, and so she was not honored in that way. And the other thing is, clean your house. My mother left a 4-bedroom house full of everything you can imagine. It took us 3 months to clean it out.
Yeah.
My grandmother died at 103, and everything that she owned I put in one cardboard box and moved out of her little assisted room.
Wow. Yeah.
And I can tell you the difference.
Yeah, it's really, that is wonderful advice, yeah. Figuring out how to keep your things organized so your loved ones don't have to sift through so much. Yeah, I think.
What inspired you to go down this path?
I definitely, I've had a handful of near-death experiences. My last one really irked me. It was pretty scary. It kind of left me with a lot of feelings of thinking about death and wanting to die myself. And I stumbled on, during that time, I stumbled on a TED Talk from Lula Arthur, and that's how I learned about death doula and what that is. And I kind of had this this aha moment of this is the work that I want to do. So I'm stoked to be where I'm at, and I'm so stoked to be working for Hospice of Anchorage, because I think we're being a nonprofit, we're just a fat resource that's available for free for our community, and I really want to help individuals navigate death and dying so that we can not only die well, but we can live well too. I think it's really important that, we don't need to think about death and doom and gloom all the time, but, being mindful of death, I firmly believe that being mindful of death will allow us to live better lives and more authentically.
I suggest the Stephen Levine books in your library. Have you ever heard of Stephen Levine? He's written, I gave that book, or his books, to the hospice library in 1990. And it helped a lot.
Okay.
In becoming more aware of where you're at, and any sense of bereavement that you think you might have, going within this process. The funerals that I presided over, which are many, that I found that it was more of a rebirth. That I got the same feeling at the funeral as I got at watching a newborn baby come out of a woman's womb. Same thing. I'm in the frequency, and it's the same frequency.
Wow. Yeah.
So life goes on.
Yeah.
So you have touched, Angela, and given us some great information on the I call it the black and white of death. The facts, right?
Yeah.
This is, we're gonna die, get your stuff in order. Face that with a joy as much as you do. Clean out your house, do your will, tell people what you want, talk about it, right? Tell us how you or even hospice touches on the spiritual aspect of death. Because I know a lot of the people in here, like Bud has worked with the hospice for quite some time. Chris and Joan have both experienced taking care of elderly parents. Probably others in here have witnessed that aspect. And, by approaching the non-fearfulness of death and the spiritual aspect of it, is that something that you as a death doula also do, or that hospice does?
Yeah, it's something that I would personally do. I know Hospice of Anchorage. From my understanding, hospice kind of got really jumbled during COVID, and so we're really trying to. They've made a lot of change, and that's something that they definitely want to touch on more and try to work towards. We don't currently do a whole lot with that. With our clients, we do have companions that, in that regard, we can kind of, we do train them to talk about, to be prepared to have those kinds of conversations with their companion that they're matched with, and.
What would be some of the biggest fears that people face when they're in that stage of dying? What type of things are they?
Feeling pain, I know is a big one.
Physical pain or emotional pain?
Both, very much both. And socialize, being alone, being scared to die alone is a big one as well. And then it really depends on the person with their personal beliefs in regards to, and if they don't necessarily feel that there's an afterlife, not knowing what is to come after is very much something that they is another common fear towards the end of life.
I have a question about pain management.
Yeah.
I have been with a few people in the process of dying, like both of my parents and my girlfriends. Particularly with my mother, it was none of these people went to a hospital. It was in Germany, and it was a little bit easier there. And my mother, the house doctor, he said, because she was making these sounds like so I said, Mama, do you have pain? Don't ask me stupid questions. And so I told it to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, I give you some morphine capsules, and if it gets really bad, you could give her one of these morphine capsules. And so when, and I said, Mama, do you have pain? Do you want this capsule? Don't disturb me. And then when I really tuned in, it was like her body, the physical body, was in pain. But she was already half out. So for her, everything was well. It was kind of, the body was going through its thing, but she was like, it was like somebody else was experiencing. She was not complaining about pain or something. And I thought, is this something that you ever experienced, that, although there's physical pain, but it didn't bother her at all? Have you ever come across anything like that in your experience?
Not yet, but I know there is. If you there's a little pamphlet titled "Gone from My Sight," and it kind of lists the things that you should be mindful and watch for near end of life, from going from a few months to a few weeks to a few days, and it's going to be the same, pretty similarly across the board for everyone who is reaching those last few days and weeks of life.
Almost like a birth, where you know that the
So there's definitely kind of signs, and being knowledgeable of those is what I would recommend, and just using your best judgment, if you and feeling to navigate that, whether or not they're in physical pain or if they need to be, trying to make them most comfortable as possible, or if it's just kind of a normal part of the normal process of passing.
I actually can talk a little bit about that. My mom, I haven't talked about this for a long time, but so my mom passed in 2018 from a rare cancer. And on the last day that she was on earth with my sister and I, she passed away at home with us, and the body and the mind they're in sync, but I think in death, the body has to go through a certain phase until everything, you know, shuts down. And anyway, the last day that she was with us, she was no longer talking, wasn't eating anymore, but she kind of woke up for just a couple of minutes. She tried to push herself off the couch, which was where she was laying for almost like a month. And my sister and I were sitting right next to her, and she was like, "Girls, what's going on? Like, why are you guys crying?" And it's kind of like the mind or like the soul had already passed over and was kind of going back and forth between, you know, the earth body and then the next life. And she's like, "You know, I really have to get up." And I'm like, "Well, Mom, it's okay, but we can't lift you." She's like, no, I really need to get up." I'm like, "Mom, it's okay. It's okay to let go. You don't have to. We're gonna be okay. You don't need to stay here anymore." And she laid back down and kind of went back into that zone of just kind of like moaning and but within a couple hours after that occurred, you know, she was on a morphine drip at that point in her life. And my sister and I decided to take like a 15-minute nap, which was obviously did not happen. It was like an hour, and the next time we woke up, she had passed. But my mom had battled cancer for about 2 years, and there was always this hope that an individual holds on to when they're diagnosed with an unbeatable disease. And I think when they're told, at least this is what I kind of found, was when the nurses told her, like, "Oh, well, there's nothing more I can do for you. Like, you're probably gonna pass in the next couple of months." I could see it in my mom's eyes and in the way that she started acting, that she just gave up. And I've talked to a couple of friends of mine that, like, that's something that I would never want to tell an individual when they're at a stage of their life when they should be comforted, and just allow them to come into that space on their own. But you know, I really wish my mom had a death doula like you guys, where things could have been a lot easier for her and my sister and I when that process of passing on. But I also kind of found out that, like, my mom didn't really know how to communicate that she wasn't going to be here for us physically anymore. That was a hard part for her to talk to us about. And that whole of, at the age of 26, having to take on responsibility that I never learned from her. My sister and I both had to grow up really, really quickly after she had passed. And I think there is a stage of, especially when our mom died at home, my sister and I saged her body, brought her body into the bathtub and cleaned her whole body. That there is a type of ceremonial, I don't know, like respect or something that I think that an individual should go through when there is death, and that's totally personal. But you know, our bodies go through a lot in this life. That I think it's good to cleanse that and have that rebirth for the ones that are living too. So anyway, I don't know, I just ranted.
just
So
wanted
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so
I
much.
just wanted to clarify that.
yeah,
Although my mother's body was making sounds of pain,
Yeah.
the experience was total ecstasy.
Yeah.
It was really like, wow, I could hardly contain that. It was so,
Love.
wow, it was just, the two biggest gifts I got from my mother was one that she gave birth to me, and the other one that it so happened that I could be there when she went on her ride. It was
Yeah.
ecstasy. It wasn't sad. It wasn't. Yes, there was this that pain sounds, but it was such an ecstasy, and it was like a contact high. I got so high. I was singing to her for hours, just all these songs from these German old folk songs, because I was kind of high, and it was incredible. So I was wondering, also the body makes all these pain sounds and things, but with the few people that I had been sitting with while they were going, my dad was dying when I was 12, and I remember my mom opened the door and we were like, oh, we have to let him fly out. He needs to fly. And I don't know, it is here, often it's like as if this is the biggest tragedy, but it's, to me, the few times I had a chance, it felt like total ecstasy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I worked as a birth midwife, and one of the things that many times we would tell the women is to keep your mouth really open and let the sound come out. It's not necessarily pain, but it's moving the energy that you're feeling, because there's so much energy moving through the body. And I would suspect that through death, because we're saying it's the same kind of transition, that maybe that's what she was making those sounds because there's so much energy moving through her body.
It's really common for individuals nearing when they're very close to end of life. They'll have their mouth open, which makes sense. So just kind of clearing out that energy. Also touching. Thank you so much for sharing, as both of you. Having that nearing towards the end, it's really common for individuals to kind of have a short surge of energy, and it's almost as if they weren't, it's really I'm not sure what the exact I can't remember the name of it, but it's just like this kind of
terminal lucidity is the term they give it.
Oh.
And it's like a short burst of energy, and it's almost like they've come back to life, and I believe that's very close to towards the end that it happens.
I got a quick comment on that, because you mentioned it with your mother with the surge of energy. A lot of people have had the experience with light bulbs. When you go to turn on a lamp, sometimes the light bulb gets really bright and then it goes out. Everybody had that. It used to be the old incandescent light bulbs, and then what it was they used to have that little filament that went across, and so the filament is like the body, and the filament holds the frequency that Gilbert was talking about, the frequency down enough so you get this nice even light. But as the tungsten gets older and older, it starts to wear down, and more energy is able to go across that arc. And so it doesn't temper it down to give the light. It gets that bright light that you get when you turn it, and then it goes out. So a lot of people, when the tungsten starts wearing out, they're able to receive so much energy, so much stuff from because you're going through that interplay between spirit and form, where the same kind of it's a frequency, and so they're able to tap into that, and they kind of perk up a little bit.
Yeah.
But usually it's a sign you don't have too long to go before the light bulb goes out. But anyway, there is a lot on that surge that you saw. So and you were very blessed to see that surge. it's a very nice time to be there.
Thank you.
So, have you heard anything about 21 grams? Supposedly when we die, we immediately get 21 grams lighter.
Oh,
And it doesn't matter if you're a baby or a sumo wrestler, it's still 21 grams. So what's up with that? I mean, scientists have actually had people on scales and recorded all this. It's real.
I have heard that. I know it's common for us to alleviate anything that might still be in your gut. But I'm not sure.
That might vary, it might
21
not be 21 grams for
Yeah, so I'm not
everybody.
sure if that's different from.
21 grams is the weight of the soul.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is fascinating that, we ride in on the breath and then we ride out on the breath. And so the breath, I'm sure for those that have been witness to somebody in that transition stage have the privilege of witnessing that last breath. Takes the body shuts down, but the soul is then released. And then that's why it's so important even in our living stage that we are honoring our breath.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also wanted to touch real quick on both of you commented on giving permission to let go, and from what I've researched, it's as if individuals like who are near death kind of like hold on, and there's like a profound when they receive that kind of permission to let go, the loved ones have given the okay, it makes a difference, and we are able to pass when the time it has come. It's pretty, from what I understand, it's pretty common for, and if individuals haven't necessarily received that kind of permission, it's really common for people to pass when their loved ones have left the room, because then they feel it's almost as a space that they can that allows them to let go and not have that kind of strain to continue on for their loved ones to be there, So.
One thing to add about the permission is to let the person know that they have the choice. That's it. It's up to them. It's nobody else.
Yeah.
And that gives them permission to do what they feel is correct.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I have had the privilege of being with my dad. I got a phone call, and I was in Alaska, and he was in Maryland. He was in a Seventh-day Adventist home care, and I visited him from time to time. In fact, I'd just been there exactly a month before that, and this phone call came from the nurses there and said, your dad is failing fast, and perhaps you'd like to speak with him. And so I did, and I heard, some sounds, his voice, so I knew it was him. And then I told him what he had meant to the three of us, me and my two older brothers, and what a wonderful life and so forth. And I gave him permission to let go. I said, you can, you can just let it all go now, Dad. And he did.
Yeah.
He did. And then they said, we'll call you back when his vital signs have shut down. But it was very peaceful and very meaningful. Yeah, just to give him that permission.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
It makes a difference.
yeah.
The other part is forgiveness. To forgive them for everything that ever happened anywhere, that you're free. You don't have to worry about if you hurt me or my brother or sister. That's all gone. That also just is a complete release. It's like, all right, I'm out of here.
And so, in relationship to everybody having these wonderful remembrances of their beloved mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. I would, in remembrance of life, go home and light a candle in remembrance of, because in the eternal now, all your beloveds are with you most of the time. And a candle will, is a proactive light switch that can help a person with or without a mind. Lighten your load, just lighten your load.
So let's give her a big hand.